Where are we? Right back. Uptown. Shout out to Rudolph, man. Rudolph, I'm trying to tell y'all guys, man, you want to know where this stuff all started. You used to go to school with individuals, and, I remember, coming up here visiting my cousin, man. My cousin was a ball player till he blew his knee out. And I'm trying to tell you, man, when you really sit down and you watch people, it's one thing when you see somebody playing basketball, but you want to say, I want to know where that stuff started. This is Rudolph, man. It's been a minute, since I actually been in this space. Now, they got the courts up here, but somehow this grassy area, I think they done a little something different, right? I almost want to say the courts was a little bit over here, but due to reconstruction. See, as you can see, I think this might be some kind of soccer field, because I know the basketball courts used to be over here, like somewhere up in here. But I'm trying to tell you, man, the guys who used to play on this court, I'm gonna go ahead and leave my family out of the equation. We're gonna go ahead and talk about Day, man. Day was probably the smoothest. I used to just sit and watch this guy. I'm talking about the prettiest handle. He can go up in the air. He can pass you the ball. And I'm looking at this guy, man. I'm like, oh my God, man, this is incredible. But to get back, when you go to school with individuals, right, and you play at recess, right? You play at recess and you see guys like Jimmy and even Blind, man. Shout out to Blind. Blind is no longer here no more. And Blind was who he was. Blind, he used to wear bifocals, right? But when I used to say, well, man, I'm gonna come around y'all way for a minute and just see, what y'all be doing. Because when you looking at them at school and you seeing how they playing basketball, and you like, my God, man, where did this stuff start at? You come up Rudolph, you get to see everybody you go to school with, right? So that right there is you automatically in, right? When somebody see you that you go to school with and you come around their block, that means, man, you're welcome, right? And these was the early 90s. We here, man, this Hamilton Street, little low-key apartments. So you got guys like Jeff Pinshaw, Dale, you got Blind, you got Jimmy, my main man, Raynard Freeman. I don't know where these guys get this basketball knowledge from or who they used to watch, but I'm telling you, man, these guys that came up, in this Kennedy Street corridor, anything about Kennedy, man, these guys knew how to play ball. Why didn't some of them get in the NBA? Only they know. I know my cousin, his knee blew out on him because he was dunking the ball like it wasn't nothing. But when you talking about, they changed it, man. Okay, so yeah. Chuno, Rudolph School, Washington Latin. So they pretty much changed it up. But when you finally come to their hometown, their home turf, Rudolph, and you get to see them and you giving them that, like, what's going on with you? And they like, how you get around here? Or maybe you rode the bike. During that time, a lot of guys was, riding those little Ninja 50s, whether they were stolen or not. We made our ways around neighborhoods. But, and when you finally get to see them actually play on their courts, and you be like, man, oh my God, man, yeah, man, these dudes wasn't nothing to play with, man. And that's just how it was, man. For you to actually come and see these guys play, you'd be like, yeah, man, it's just not only how they play at school. They does that on the regular. That's all they done was play basketball, right? You had a few that might have came home and hit the books, and then some still came out right? But it was always refreshing when you go back to school and they'd say, man, such and such was around my block, or such and such came to watch us play basketball. And I mean, those was the most wonderfulest days in Remote Junior High. You know, man, sometimes I get in the reminisce mode, and I always do it like every year. You know, I always just say, I just wish I could rewind time back. You know, the stuff that I know now, what I would have applied, you know, far as money, making mistakes, you know, I would have, man, but you know, you can't get time back, man. You know, the only thing you can do is push it forward. More beautiful houses, they got the most beautiful houses, man. And you can see the vehicles off the chain up here too. But this whole field right here, I almost want to say the basketball courts was just over there, right? I think they were there. This whole field, they done something with it. Like I said, it's been a minute since I actually been up here on this side far as walking. I'm out here again, man, walking. But yeah, man, if you ever wanted to know, you know, the history of Kennedy Street, man, like where did these guys, how did it start? Man, you had to be coming up Rudolph, man. You had to. You had to actually see these. I'm talking about football too, man. You had football. Who was that playing the football? You had Jeff. You know, Jeff was like a celebrity when it came to football. I think Jeff got injured. Jeff broke his leg, if I'm not mistaken. But Kennedy Street, Northwest, man, birthed a lot of athletes. A lot of athletes. I think the NBA was lucky, if you ask me, because I swear, if they would have let Day in, it would have been a problem, man. You know, I know many be saying, you know, man, if Len Bias didn't, you know, if he didn't pass, man, it probably wouldn't be no Michael Jordan, who knows, but Len Bias was tough, man. Look at all these beautiful houses, man. Beautiful. The houses are beautiful, streets are clean, right? Ingram Street. But that's just another tour, man. Northwest Washington, D.C. I said I was gonna do it. You know, like I said, man, sometimes I reminisce, man. I'm not finished though. You know, I'm not finished. I'm gonna get some people what they wanna hear. I know they wanna hear it. You know, I'm gonna let them hear it when time comes. You know, I'm not finished. You know, this is what the city needs to hear, you know, versus a bunch of violence and old stories, man. We want to know where, you know, where did these peoples come from? How did it start? You know, that's what you need to be asking. Like, how did it start? You know, I seen a brother talking about, you know, some guys from Newton Street, if you're familiar with those guys. These are household names that I heard of, you know, as a little young man. So it wasn't like when you hear these names or you had to go off somewhere and you had to run into these dudes. These are the dudes that I heard about. These was household names, pretty much really close-knit type dudes, right? And when he was talking, and he was like, man, you know, when you be puffing these dudes up or how you hear about them, this was always a beautiful apartment right here, man. It was something about this. But he was like, when you meet them or when you finally see them, you be scratching your head like, damn, the way they puff Holmes up, you would think he'll rip your head off the minute he see you, but that's not the case, you know. So we gotta stop agitating stuff on. You know, we never gonna get nowhere if we keep doing that. This is a beautiful place, man. We still up on Hamilton Street, but up the hill, you know, you had Delafield. You know, a young man I often ask about. We got 301, man. This was my cousin's apartment, him growing up. So, you know, the basketball court was right across the street. So basketball was his life. But young man by the name of Breon, man, just kind of like chose to go the wrong way. But the crazy part about Breon was we used to always have him as a weller. You know, we're welling like you're telling a story, but come to find out, everything he was talking about was true. And you know, he reminded us of a young Tupac. Used to come to school with his big old Timberlands on, untied. I swear to God, I don't know if he watched Juice before he used to come to school in the morning, but that's who Breon reminded us of. So, you know, Breon, man, he got caught up in the mix, man, and he wasn't going for too much of nothing. And, you know, very skinny dude. Like Tupac say, how do you survive weighing 165 in a city where the skinny ninjas die? And, you know, hearing Breon's situation, man, I'm like, oh my God, that was my little guy, man. I remember when he used to bring the brown bags to school for lunch. You know, he used to bring brown bags to school to lunch, right? That's all I can remember him of. But every time you get up on him, he had a war story. You know, what he done the other day, and you just looking, you know, me and my homeboy just looking at each other, frowning our lips up, laughing. But true story. So with that being said, beautiful souls, everybody have a good afternoon. Peace out, I'm gone.